நீங்கள் பார்த்து கொண்டிருப்பது உங்கள் RSKV யூடியூப் சேனல்.
Income Tax Inspectors Exam 2018 Paper 3 Allied Laws. Question 1. The period of limitation for setting aside an alienation by a father of joint family property is dash years from the date on which the transferee takes place possession of the property. 12. Question 2. A gift of property by a father to his son at the time of his marriage is not an ancestral property. Question 3. Suppose A and B are two brothers and that A has a son C and B has a son D. On A's death, his undivided interest will pass to B, C, D. Question 4. P and Q are co-partners. R obtains a decree against Q with respect to Q's interest in co-partnership property. Q then dies. A. If Q's interest was not attached in his lifetime, Q's interest will pass to P by survivorship. B. If Q's interest was attached in his lifetime, Q's interest will not pass to P by survivorship. C. If Q happened to be P's grandfather, Q's interest can be attached even after Q's death by R. Answer all of the above. Question 5. P and Q are members of a joint family who own a shop. Q prohibits P from entering the shop and taking part in the management of the shop. Q can be restrained by an injunction from excluding P from the joint possession and management of the shop. Question 6. P, Q and R are co-partners. P's interest in the co-partnery is sold to A. Subsequently, Q dies. A then sues P and R for partition. What is this entitlement of A's share? 1/3 of the property. Question 7. P, Q and R are co-partners. P's interest in the co-partnery is sold to A. Subsequently, Q dies. A then sues P and R for partition. What are the entitlement of Q's share to P and R? 1/6 of the property. Question 8. A member of joint family, sells one of the joint properties Y to B. Subsequently, A sues his co-partners for partition and another property Z of equal value is allotted to him on partition. B is entitled to recover Z from A. Question 9. A member of a joint family, sells one of the joint properties Y to B, who then sells property Y to C. Subsequently, A sues his co-partners for partition and another property Z of equal value is allotted to him on partition. C is not entitled to recover any property from A but can sue B for damages. X has two sons, P and Q. P has a son R and Q has an unmarried daughter. Yes, P releases his interest in co-partnery property in favor of his father X. This interest will be separate property in hands of X. B, this interest will be shared by X and Q. C, only R has entitlement to P's share. D, answer, all co-partners will benefit from the released interest. Answer D, all the co-partners will benefit from the released interest. Question 11. A and his brother's son B are members of a joint family governed by Mitakshara law. A sells his undivided interest in the joint family property to P without consent of B and without legal necessity. Afterwards, A dies. A's share passes on to his nephew B by survivorship. Question 12. A, B and C are brothers and they, along with their sons, form a joint family governed by Mitakshara law. The three brothers mortgaged the joint family property without consent of their sons and without legal necessity. The mortgage is void. Question 13. A and his sons B and C are members of a joint Hindu family. In 1985, A sells one of the joint properties to D and delivers the possession of the property to him. In 1991, another son E is born to A. In 2011, E brings suit against D to set aside the sale. The suit is barred by limitations since more than 12 years have elapsed since D took possession of the sold property. Question 14. Under the provision of the Transfer of Property Act 1882, a mere right to sue cannot be transferred. Question 15. Under the Transfer of Property Question 15. Under the Transfer of Property Act 1882, public office cannot be transferred. Question 16. Section 54 of the Transfer of Property Act defines the sale of immovable property. Sale is a transfer of ownership in exchange for a price paid or promised, or part paid and part promised. 1. Price paid. 2. Price promised. 3. Part paid and part promised. 1, 2, 3 all are correct. Question 17. Some conditions must be fulfilled before the equity provided in section 51 arises. 1. The person evicted must be transferee. 2. The person must have made the improvements believing in good faith that he was absolutely entitled. Both 1 and 2 are correct. Question 18. Order 19 deals with affidavits. Question 19. Payment of decree shall be recorded at the instance of judgment debtor where which of the above statement is not correct. Payment is admitted by anyone on behalf of decree holder whether or not authorized if family member. This statement is not correct. Question 20. Where the application for review is heard by more than one judge and the court is equally divided, the application shall be rejected. Order 16 of CPC contains dash rules 21. Question 22. Where a testator bequeaths certain property upon trust and the purpose of the trust appears on the face of the will to be unlawful, or during the testator's lifetime the legatee agrees with him to apply the property for an unlawful purpose, the legatee must hold the property for the benefit of the testator's legal representative. Question 23. Where property is bequeathed and the revocation of the bequest is prevented by coercion, the legatee must hold the property for the benefit of the testator's legal representative. Question 24. A. Trustee uses the trust property for the purpose of his own business. A holds for the benefit of this beneficiary the profits arising from such use. The above illustration is derived from the basic principle enshrined in which section of the Indian Trust Act 1882? Section 85. Question 25. A joint Hindu family consists of all persons who are linkally descended from a common ancestor and includes sons, their wives, and unmarried daughters. Question 26. An undivided Hindu family is joint in food, worship, and estate. Question 27. Which of the following is incorrect? A joint Hindu family consists of male members. This statement is incorrect. With reference to the Hindu Succession Amendment Act 2005, which of the following is correct? The daughter of a co-partner also becomes a co-partner in her own right by birth. Question 29. A co-partnership can commence only with the common male ancestor. Question 30. A Hindu co-partnership is a pure creature of law. B is created by birth. C can be created by adoption. Answer D, all of the above. Question 31. A copartnership cannot be said to be extinct till the death of the last surviving copartner. Question 32. Share of an individual member of an undivided joint Hindu family fluctuates according to births, adoptions, and deaths. Question 33. Section 19 of Hindu Succession Act 1956 expressly provides that if two or more heirs succeed together to a self-acquired property of an intestate, they take such property as tenants in common. Question 34. Upon death, interest of a deceased member of a Mitakshara copartnership passes on to the surviving copartners. Question 35. The Daya Bhaga school A holds that all heritage is abstracted. B does not recognize the principle of survivorship. C recognizes only the right of succession. Answer D, all of the above. Question 36. Under Mitakshara copartnership, which of the following is correct? A copartner cannot alienate his share in ancestral immovable property without consent of other copartners. Question 37. The doctrine of blending states that when a property which was originally the separate or self-acquired property of a member of a joint family is voluntarily thrown by him into the common stock with the intention of abandoning all claims of such property becomes joint family property. Question 38. A Hindu joint family consists of a father, a son, and an unmarried daughter. The father opens a bank account in which he deposits income arising from certain ancestral properties. He also earns certain income from other sources which he deposits in the same bank account. There is nothing to show that he is discriminated between the two sources of income. Will the self-acquisition of the father be treated as joint family property? Onus of proof is on the person alleging the blending. Question 39. Vidyadhana or gains of learning as per Hindu law are exclusive and separate property of the member of the joint family who acquires them. Question 40. To validate an alienation by Karta, it is not necessary to obtain express consent of all adult co-partners. Question 41. A co-partner can dispose of her interest in co-partnership property by will. Yes. Question 42. Presumption of equity pertains to Section 45 of the Transfer of Property Act 1882. Question 43. The provision of improvements made by bona fide holders under defective titles is dealt in Section 51 of the Transfer of Property Act 1882. Question 44. Lease is defined in Section 105 of the Transfer of Property Act 1882. 1. The transfer is called the lessor. 2. The transferee is called the lessee. 3. The price is called the premium. 4. The money, share, service or other thing to be so rendered is called the rent. All the above 1, 2, 3, 4 are correct. Question 45. The Transfer of Property Act 1882 come into force on the first day of July 1882. Question 46. Which statement is correct? Transfer of property means an act by which a living person conveys property in present or in future. This statement is correct. Question 47. Lease is defined in Section 105 of Transfer of Property Act 1882. Question 48. Lease is defined in the Transfer of Property Act 1882. 1. A lease of immovable property is a transfer of right to enjoy such property for a certain time, expressed or implied in consideration of price. This statement is correct. Question 49. Rights and liabilities of lessor and lessees are defined in Section 108 of the Transfer of Property Act 1882. Question 50. Sale of mortgage property or any part thereof in default of payment of the mortgage money by a mortgagee without the intervention of court is defined in Section 69 of the Transfer of Property Act 1882. Question 51. Doctrine of lis pendens defined in Section 52 of the Transfer of Property Act 1882. Question 52. The mortgagee right in proceeds of revenue sale or compensation on acquisition form the mortgage property or any part thereof or any interest thereon owing to failure to pay arrears of revenue or other charges discussed in the Section 73 of the Transfer of Property Act 1882. Question 53. As per the Indian Trust Act 1882, a trustee is who accepts the confidence. Question 54. As per the Indian Trust Act 1882, breach of trust is a breach of any duty imposed on a trustee as such by any law for the time being is in force. Question 55. Which of the following is not correct? Where the trust property is an immovable and situated in a foreign country, lawful purpose of the trust need not be governed by the law of such country where the property is situated. It is sufficient that Indian laws are complied with. Question 56. Where a trust is created for two purposes, of which one is lawful and the other unlawful, and the two purposes cannot be separated, the whole trust is void. Question 57. A bequests property to B in trust to employ it in carrying on a smuggling business and out of the profits thereof to support A's children. The trust is void. Question 58. Which of the following regarding a trust involving immovable property is correct? It shall be declared by a non-testamentary instrument in writing signed by the author of the trust or the trustee and registered or by the will of the author of the trust or of the trustee. Question 59. A trustee is simply authorized to sell certain land by public auction. The trustee can only dispose of the property through a public auction. Question 60. Section 20A was inserted by Section 3 of the Indian Trust Amendment Act 1960 1 of 1916. Question 61. Mr. A, an insane person, wants to transfer his beneficial interest. Select the correct position of laws as per the Indian Trust Act 1882. Mr. A cannot transfer his beneficial interest at all. Question 62. Information means any material in any form including 1. Logbooks. 2. Information relating to any private body which can be accessed by a public authority under any other law. Both 1 and 2 are correct. Question 63. Third party under the RTA Act 2005 includes a public authority. Question 64. Under Section 6 of the Rights to Information Act 2005, an applicant making request for information is required to give only the details that may be necessary for contacting him. Question 65. According to Section 5 of the Transfer of Property Act 1882, living person includes company or association or body of individuals. Question 66. Under the Transfer of Property Act 1882, A. The public officer cannot be transferred. B. The salary of a public officer cannot be transferred. Both A and B are true. Under 67, under Section 8 of the Transfer of Property Act 1882, the legal incidence also includes machinery attached to earth and the movable parts thereof. Question 68. Transfer of property can be made without writing in every case in which a writing is not expressly required by law. Question 69. Where immovable property is transferred for consideration to two or more persons, where such consideration is paid out of separate funds belonging to them respectively, they are in the absence of a contract to the contrary, respectively entitled to interest in such property in proportion to the shares of the consideration which they respectively advanced. Question 70. The provision of improvements made by bona fide holders under the defective title is dealt in Section 51 of the Transfer of Property Act 1882. Question 71. The provisions of smart performance in transfer of property is dealt in Section 53A of the Transfer of Property Act. Question 72. A mortgage is a transfer of an interest in specific immovable property for the purpose of securing the payment of A. Money advanced or to be advanced by way of loan and existing or future debt. B. The performance of an engagement which may give rise to a pecuniary liability. Both A and B are correct. Question 73. Following is not an ingredient for simple mortgage. Delivering possession of the mortgaged property. Question 74. In the absence of a contract or local law or usage to the contrary, a lease of immovable property for agricultural or manufacturing purposes shall be deemed to be a lease from answer year to year. Question 75. A lease of immovable property from year to year or for any term exceeding 1 year or reserving a yearly rent can be made by a registered instrument. Question 76. As per Transfer of Property Act, if the donee dies before acceptance of gift, the gift is void. Question 77. Under the provision of the Transfer of Property Act 1882, an easement cannot be transferred apart from the dominant heritage. Statement is true. 78. Gift as per provisions of Section 122 of the Transfer of Property Act is: gift is the transfer of certain existing movable or immovable property made voluntarily and without consideration by one person called the donor to another called the donee and accepted by or on behalf of the donee. Question 78. Under the Transfer of Property Act 1882, the condition restraining alienation is provided in Section 10. 80. Section 44 of the Transfer of Property Act 1882 deals with transfer by one co-owner. Question 81. The provision for the joint transfer for consideration is dealt in Section 45 of the Transfer of Property Act 1882. Question 82. Who prescribes forms for the books issued under Registration Act 1908? Inspector General. Question 83. The state government shall supply the office of every registrar with a dash and shall in each district make suitable provision for the safe custody of the records connected with the registration of documents in such district. Fireproof box. Question 84. Which section of the Indian Registration Act 1908 provides compulsory registration of the documents? Section 17(1)(7). Question 85. Which of the following is correct in the light of provision of Registration Act 1908? Instruments of gift of immovable property is required to be compulsorily registered. Which of the following, question 86, which of the following is true under Registration Act 1908? A. Authority to adopt, if not through will, requires to be compulsorily registered. Registration of will is optional. B. Registration of will is optional. Both A and B are correct. Question 87. Which of the following depicts correct position in law about who can present a will for registration before a registrar or sub-registrar? A. Testator, if he is live. B. Person claiming as executor or otherwise under a will after the death of the testator. Both A and B are correct. Question 88. Depending upon the facts of a case, who among the following are entitled to present Authority to adopt for registration before registrar or sub-registrar. Donor. Question 89. A registrar may register an authority to adopt presented by a person after the death of a donor. A. If he is satisfied that the authority was executed by the donor. B. The person presenting the authority to adopt is entitled to present the same for registration. Both A and B have to be satisfied. Question 90. Which of the following is false with respect to registration of will as per Indian Registration Act 1908? A will cannot be registered after the death of the testator. Question 91. On receipt of order of court to produce any will deposited with the registrar. A. Registrar shall open the cover and cause the will to be copied into his record. B. Registrar shall make a note on such copy about original being removed on court order. Both A and B are correct. Question 92. The Central Public Information Officer or State Public Information Officer may reject requests for information where providing access would infringe copyright subsisting in a person other than the state. Question 93. Who has to bear the onus or burden of proof through the appeals process under the RTA Act 2005? Public Information Officer. Question 94. According to Section 4 of 1B of the RTA Act 2005, the information published by a public authority has to be updated every year. Question 95. The obligation of public authorities are mentioned in dash of the RTA Act 2005, Section 4. Question 96. The definition of public authority under the RTA Act 2005 includes NGOs substantially financed by the appropriate government. Question 97. An applicant seeking information under the RTA Act 2005 is required to give his or her contract details. Question 98. Central Information Commission means the Central Information Commission constituted under dash of the RTA Act 2005, subsection 1 of section 12. 99. Under RTA Act 2005, the fee for inspection of the documents in the first hour will be free of cost. Question 100. Which one of the following is not a public authority for the purpose of the Right to Information Act 2005? ICICI Bank.